be good to talk to college students about what it's been like to live through 2 years of this pandemic as a college student. We'd use our experience putting together this podcast and actually teach a podcasting class, and we have the members of our class here today. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Haley Quillen, and I am from Big Stone Gap in the Wise County area, and I'm a senior here at the college.
Hey, y'all. My name is Brock Davidson. I'm from Marion, Virginia, and I'm a theater major here at UVA Wise.
Hi, I'm Carson Fuller. I'm a junior here at UVA Wise, and I'm majoring in communications.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Dykstra, and I'm a fifth-year senior at UVA Wise, so I've been here a while, and I'm also from Norton.
Hey, I'm Molly Frazier. I'm from Bristol, Virginia. I'm a communications major, a senior, and a business administration minor.
I am Anthony Cordell, and I am from Richlands, Virginia. I am a senior and currently studying communications.
My name is Dejon Belfield, and I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. I'm a communications major.
Going into the world, those of you who are seniors, what does that look like for you? Because we have, among our listeners, we have lots of teachers, we have moms, we have, people with college age family who may not realize some of the things that you've experienced, some of the things that you're going through. We just want to get your perspective because you guys are a different generation. You've got different things to think about and things to talk about than those of us of a different generation. And so we just wanted to get your perspective on that. And we're just going to sort of let you lead this conversation. And
yeah, I might actually start with the leadoff question. What will you tell your kids about your experience living through the pandemic in the middle of college? How would you describe that?
The biggest thing was getting transitioned because it happened in a lot of our, I think, sophomore years if you're a senior. And the biggest thing was being told not to come back to campus was insane and really didn't expect that to happen because it all came over one email, and then from there you never came back to college for that spring semester. Everything was done online all of a sudden. If you were like me, I didn't have a really good source of internet, and it made some online classes very difficult. And then just transitioning from what I knew from the first 2 semesters of college to what it's become now has been a very different transition, and it's definitely not the easiest thing to do.
the internet access piece was, I know, something that was difficult for a lot of people, and we all were scrambling to, especially in the Appalachian Mountains. That's something that a lot of people face here that the rest of the United States may not be aware of, right? Just the topography makes internet access sometimes sketchy and phone access sometimes sketchy.
I think the biggest thing that I'll pass on about it, whether I talk to it with my kids or just anybody who asks about it in the future, I'm going to feel like a lot of stuff was stolen from me, and I'm going to talk about that in that way. I graduated. I graduated high school in the class that when we got shut down. So my last 3 months of high school were, all on computers. And just like Anthony, I had pretty terrible internet at home, or at least at one of my houses. Our graduation was it was just pictures of us. We would walk across the empty gym and took the diploma from the principal and then got a picture with our parents. And then that was it. There was no ceremony or anything like that, no formality to it. Not only that, but I really did feel like I kind of got my first year of college really stolen from me because we were still very, very much online back then. And then halfway through that first year, I lost a friend to COVID. So I feel like I've had a lot stolen from me because of the pandemic. And I think that's going to be the lasting sentiment for me moving forward.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. And that's so many levels of loss too. I mean, the loss of your transitional moments, but more importantly, the loss of friends and family.
I actually had a really similar experience to Brock because I was a senior in high school when the pandemic started. And I remember it was Thursday or Friday, we closed early and they said they were going to clean the school. Then Friday, we got a phone call saying that school would be closed for 2 weeks just in case. Then next thing you know, I'm already a year or two away from graduating college because we never went back. And so I do feel like I had a lot of things stolen from me, just like Brock did. Like our graduation, we had more of a graduation than Brock did, but it was not good at all. Like only a third of the students were allowed in the gym at a time. So each group would come in and it would take like 5 minutes and then they'd get shuffled out and the next group would come in. But another thing that's been really hard is just everything feels like it's so fast now class wise that it's hard to like retain things you learn in class with online stuff and changes in the way people teach. It's just very hard.
What do you mean changes in the way people teach?
Where a lot of classes went online, a lot of people have integrated along a lot of online stuff into their classes. And for me, some online classes are great, but there's a lot of classes that should just be like totally in person because online it just doesn't translate well. I've had a few history classes online, and personally for me, that doesn't work well when you're doing history online. It's just been incredibly hard to like do these classes in an online format.
So I guess I was very fortunate and didn't really get hit with COVID that much until later in the year. My grandfather got diagnosed, or not diagnosed, but got it around it was the same week as Christmas. And so our entire family stayed in. Thankfully, we all had each other, but it definitely makes you appreciate that other time with your other family and seeing everybody and being around them just to celebrate.
It was a lot of loss. It was a lot of change. It was a lot of fear. The pandemic was really something crazy, honestly, something movie-like almost. There was never like a time I've been alive, and I lived through a lot of things personally. Like we lived through 9/11 and a couple earthquakes and a lot of major events. But this pandemic has really changed the way people live life and how people see life. People lost loved ones. People lost jobs. People lost time. It was just fear. It was crazy.
Was there anything positive? Was there a silver lining?
I honestly had a pretty good experience in quarantine. I learned a lot about myself. Like everybody's so in a go attitude and atmosphere. And I just feel like this allowed everybody to slow down and think about what they actually wanted to do and take a look back at what they're doing and how they want to change and progress forward. And also, another a bad thing on my end, I decided to take chemistry for who knows what. I'm an art major. And so that was kind of hard teaching myself once we went all online. But that also taught me that I can teach myself anything and that I'm capable of doing anything that I put my mind to, So that's the positive take on mine.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have those stories about, when you don't realize you have to do something, you think I could never handle that scenario. We sort of relived what they went through during the Spanish flu. They didn't have the technology and the medical technology, obviously, that we have today. But being isolated certainly was difficult. Isolation sort of forces you to rethink how you spend your time. And it makes you sort of call up the grit. We've talked about grit in class and how each of us has it. It just takes a situation to help us push through and use it.
With my experience overall, I graduated high school. I was the class of 2019. So I was, the last class to graduate before COVID happened. And I was in college I had one complete normal semester of college before the pandemic hit, which was not enough time for me to really adjust and learn, how college was supposed to work. So I feel like silver lining for it is it's kind of made me more independent. I now have learned that I'm capable of doing a lot more things by myself than I originally thought I would be able to. I'm able to rely on people, but I'm a lot stronger as an individual than I used to think that I was.
Well, I think if we all looked hard enough, we could see a lot of good in this. I know Amy and I have talked about this before from just a perspective of, parenting and having a family, and we're in the hustle of life, and that first year was a major shift for me as far as we were all at home, and I think we appreciated a little more of a simple life. You know, that first couple weeks when the world shut down here, I mean, I was like going to the grocery store and like spraying my bags down with Lysol because I didn't know that's what everybody else was doing, you know? And so we literally retreated to our home, you know, and fortunately we live out in the middle of nowhere, so we had plenty of land. And I think I gained a new appreciation for that. I think I gained an appreciation for where I live and you know, simplicity of our days sometimes. So definitely that part of it was a big silver lining for me.
I'll agree with an appreciation for the land and a sort of newfound one being kind of cooped up, you know. I get bored, so I watch like nature documentaries and stuff, but I also do live out in the sticks, so I have a big plot of land that I can just kind of look at. And during the summer, it helped to make the world not look quite so bleak while I was still locked up in there. And Dr. Clark, I think you mentioned that this is a very transitional time in my life, and that is true. And as much as it sucked, I feel like I have been forced to kind of grow up through this, and I find that a bit of a silver lining. Like before the pandemic, you know, I didn't really go to funerals and stuff, but I did go to my friend's funeral, and I have been a pallbearer at some obscure family's funeral, and you know that's going to follow me for the rest of my life. And for some reason, this time I think has helped me learn how to cope with it and learn to cope with growing up, I guess, a little bit, you know. I don't know if I can attribute that all to the pandemic. That is a silver lining of just these years that I can remember.
I think that's so well said. And one of the things about this too is it wasn't just something that hit a few people. It was a global event and everybody was affected all at once. And so it had the power to bring people together, even though we were isolated. It had the power to bring us together in a different way. We all knew that we all were suffering on different levels. But I just imagine how much harder it would be without the technology that we have that enables us to still be able to communicate with each other. I know when my kids were complaining about not being at school and not seeing their friends, I said, well, at least you still have FaceTime. You still have these things. You know, when I was in school, it was the telephone with the cord, and you know, that's what you had to talk to people. And that seems like a really superficial thing to worry about. But we know that one of the basic needs that we have as human beings is togetherness and connectedness. And that's one of the things that it took away. And certainly, Brock, what you described and having to process the entire ritual of death of somebody that was close to you, that certainly does have an effect, particularly in transitional times of your life. So I'm glad that you can see it that way. I'm glad that you can see it in such a healthy way.
It really opened my eyes and it gave me a different outlook on life. And I'm thankful for it and I'm grateful to be here. And I'm grateful that everybody that I care about or I have a connection with is still here. The pandemic really gave me that eye-opening experience. Like, hey, don't take things for granted. And I was taking a lot of things for granted. And that really changed the way I looked at things.
What would you tell high school students now who are looking at their first year of college in the fall? What kind of advice would you give parents who are listening who can relate to their kids, or anybody who's at that age who's getting ready to make that big transition?
I would say don't let it deter you from going to college just because of how it's been in high school. Because college handles things a lot more professional, and they take in everybody's voice and opinions. They try to make everybody like feel adapted to the situation, and they also evolve with the situation and make things better. They've never tried to make it hard as possible. They always do their best to get you that college education that you are looking for. I think people should still go through it. If someone is scared about it, I think they should like maybe find a friend that goes to that college or goes to a college and talk to them about it. Because I would still tell people to still come to UVA-Wise because it has still been one of the best things I've done in my life, and I feel like it would be the best for everybody.
Yeah, and to follow up with that, I just want to say that, you know, within these last 3 years, we have all learned that, you know, life is very short. We never know what is going to happen. So take every moment and live it to the fullest, live it to the best. Be thankful for what opportunities you are given. Even if you have to do college online through Zoom, be thankful that you're getting to live through that. Do it for those that, that aren't able to it now because of what's happened with the virus. That might be really cheesy, but it's true because life is short.
And do not be scared of backup plans. This is a business major turned biochemistry major turned theater major speaking. Do not be afraid, because you will change your mind a lot. Just follow your heart. Do what you want to do. Do what is right, because no matter the paycheck that you're going to get later on in life, it is not worth not enjoying yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say not to take life so seriously because people get wrapped up in like, I have to do this and check off every list on, all my lists. So I just think that people don't really allow themselves to enjoy where they're at on the way to where they're going. That's what my mom always told me. So I think not taking life as serious as a lot of people do is very key into enjoying your life.
And I want to say, don't be afraid to make mistakes because you're going to mess up along the way. And if you get caught up on every mistake you make, you're not going to be able to get better.
Just to be flexible and to just enjoy it while you're here and enjoy the memories and look for that silver lining and the positive things that are going on. Because, life is what you make it.
You're here for a reason. You're supposed to be here. Also, I would tell them don't be afraid to ask for help. The strongest people ask for help sometimes. That's why they get to where they're at. You're here for a reason. Don't get in your own way. Be great. Nobody can stop you but you. And you got this. Remember, you got this.
And that sounds like a group of people that just lived through a pandemic, because that's what it taught us. It taught us to the best laid plans can get upended really quickly and that you better enjoy, life as you have it now.
After listening to this group here, I'm just kind of amazed at the resiliency. And I guess we could talk about everyone being resilient, but I look at, what other choice do we have, right, to adapt? But I've been so impressed with my students as a whole, and in just listening to this group, I think it was a big growth for a lot of us. I think we all grew up. I think we all experienced personal growth in a lot of ways. But again, I think maybe it's just this generation. I know I talk about in my classes that they get ragged a lot for lots of different things, for the way that, their generation does this or that or whatever. But I have to say, I'm pretty daggone impressed at how resilient they are and how they've handled this and kind of lived through some of these, some of these students were freshmen. They don't know normal college experience, but yet they're resilient. They're showing up. Their attitudes about this are good. I've just been really impressed.
What do you have to say to parents, teachers, professors, prospective employers about your generation and some of the flack that you've taken for being this or that? Easily offended or soft compared to earlier generations because you've grown up with a lot more instant gratification, the technology that allows instant gratification and things like that. What do you wish people would see about you or wish people knew about you or would embrace about your generation? What do you have to offer the world? That's a deep question.
That is a very deep question, but what I'm thinking right now is our generation does get talked down a lot, but I guess my message to go out to others would be that we're not all the same. We're not all what you see, online or in the media. That is just a small group of what our generation may have to offer, but the majority of us, we're thinkers. We're very innovative. Where we did grow up with, the media and all this new technology, are going to strive for success, even though it might be taking a different road than a lot of other people would have done in the past.
I think especially older folks that make fun of this generation and poke fun at it, I would like them to take a step back and look at the world that they were inheriting when they were our age compared to the world that we're going to be inheriting and the world that we're growing up into, and how we've been forced to grow up into that world. That's the only point of view I would like them to look at it from. And maybe that would change how they view us just a little bit.
How would you describe the world you're inheriting?
I have maybe a different outlook than a lot of people do, but I think we're inheriting a really confusing world. You have a major power going to war against, another country, an unsanctioned invasion at that. That wasn't there in the early 90s, or it was the Persian Gulf War, but that felt more justified in our media and our media cycle than Russia's invasion of Ukraine did. In the past generation, growing up into the 90s and the early 2000s, tech was pretty simple. You had big dinosaur Dell Microsoft computers, and phones, were barely even mobile yet at that point. Flip phones became a thing in the early 2000s. Technology for us is a much more terrifying beast. We have the whole metaverse thing with people like Mark Zuckerberg creating essentially a virtual reality, and it's just a daunting prospect to look at it, that the online world is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, infinitely so as the year goes by, it seems, and we're being forced to keep up with that to make a living in this world.
Okay, so I kind of want to piggyback off what Brock said about the world we're inheriting. There's a lot of problems with the climate and the environment that went unchecked for decades, and the people who are in charge now that have the opportunity to deal with them don't, and it's going to fall to us to make those things better. But by the point we have the chance to do that, it's going to be so extreme. All the climate problems, environmental problems, those are going to be so crazy bad to deal with that it's going to be almost impossible for us to deal with it.
And removing politics from my last statement, removing the idea of foreign wars, removing the idea of climate change, removing all of that. Look at the economy that we're growing up into. The real estate market is terrible right now. Everybody complains about it all the time, and anybody over 40 complains about the real estate market all the time. Look at gas prices right now. Look at inflation. We're going to be entering the job market in what is going to be more than likely the worst economic depression since '08. So it's just kind of tough to have to look at that and say, well, this is what I got to deal with. This is what I'm going to be turning into an adult. It's going to be tough for us.
Yeah, and to follow up on all this, you have to look at our generation, at all the things that we have grown up with, all the things that have happened. I was born in 2001, just a few months before 9/11. I've grown up to where terrorism and, even things like all the attacks on schools, the virus, just so many things have happened on top of all of the things that Brock and Carson have already discussed. So I think what you can look for our generation is just a lot of change. I think we want to work towards just making a better place for us to live and for future generations to live in.
The markets right now are just really expensive, and I'm like, how does a college student working a part-time job have enough money saved up to go through this while also trying to live day to day or paycheck to paycheck through college? And it's really insane, and it kind of is really hard to...
We do care, and we're not lazy. Times are changing. Times have changed. And nobody wants to do the hard labor or be tied down to something for years. That's not what life is. You should have fun. You should want to wake up every morning and love what you do. You don't want to be miserable your entire life. That's not what you should be looking forward to. That's not fun. That's not what life is. And honestly, yeah, some people do have it harder than others, but generally you want to live life and you want to make life easy. You don't want to struggle like your parents did, and you don't want to struggle like your grandparents did. You hear stories and you grow up and you watch them, and as you get older you start understanding that this life is hard. And why would you want to live a hard life when you can find ways to make it easier? But we're not staying traditional. We're going to do things that aren't what people are used to, and I just want people to understand that there's always another way to do something.
What are you excited about in terms of the life you want to start after college?
I think the thing I'm most excited about, especially where I'm graduating college, is just to go out and enjoy life. We spent so much time in quarantine and not being able to go and do things or see people. And so I think just being able to go out and travel and see everything that we want to see while also working. And I think one of the other positives that came out of the COVID-19 pandemic is the opportunity to work remote. And while some people might not find that ideal, I'm kind of excited to do that just so that I can kind of hop around and maybe not find a place to exactly land yet, just so that I can go out and see different things and really just have those experiences that I feel like we kind of didn't get to for a couple years.
I have to agree with Molly. I'm going into graphic design and I want to work remotely, so I'm not stuck anywhere in particular. I can work from, if I decide to stay here, if I want to go somewhere else, even across the globe. Working remotely would definitely benefit me. So I'm excited about that as I'm graduating too.
Yeah, that's definitely an option that you all have that earlier generations didn't, that I think is great.
I'll say my parents, they're very much in support of me following my passions and following and going into entertainment and the arts and pursuing my dreams and seeing if I can make that work. Because again, that's what they've always told me, is to just do something that I enjoy, because it's not worth doing something you won't enjoy.
Ivy Attic Company and Curated Social Strategy and Consulting. Ivy Attic Company's mother-daughter artisans craft sustainable jewelry and book charms from vintage books, glass, and organics. We specialize in custom designs inspired by our love of literature and the mountains. Browse our Etsy shop at Ivy Attic CO for our literary, coal, river glass, and mustard seed collections, along with Riley's resin designs. You can connect with us through our links on the show notes.
Curated Social Strategy and Consulting provides next-level social media for businesses and brands. Serving clients nationwide, Curated Social helps you tell your story. We believe that exceptional social media is client-focused, audience-centered, and begins with a curated and strategic approach. We offer customizable plans for our clients, from social media content calendars to weekly consulting meetings to full account services. You can learn more about these services through the links in our show notes.
Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. All you need is a microphone, your recording device, and a quiet space. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. If you use the link in our show notes, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card just for signing up for a paid plan, and you'll support our podcast. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. We can't wait to hear what you have to say.